So, hello, welcome everybody to our 18th meeting of Right Garden Voices, Trumping Deals. I'm Diego Ardoan, one of the co-organizers of Right Garden Voices, which is a grassroots initiative providing platform for constructive dialogue between Armenians and Azerbaijanis on different topics. We host online and in-person activities where our guests share their experiences and ideas, opinions, relating to Azerbaijani Armenian issues about the conflict or any other matter related to both nations. Today I'm joined by two of our volunteers, Javid Abdullayev and Narek Aleqsanyan as co-hosts. And as mentioned, the topic of our meeting today is the recent advances on the peace process between Armenia and Azerbaijan after the Washington summit. So I will briefly read how we have presented it in our flyers. So on August 8th, history was made in Washington, D.C. as Presidents Ilham Aliyev and Nikol Pashiнян signed a U.S. President Donald Trump sponsored declaration of steps toward a peace deal, followed by synchronous public announcement of the agreement by Baku and Yerevan. This development has left some optimistic with regard to Armenian and Azerbaijan relations, but others remain skeptical as many uncertainties remain concerning its details, enforcement, and broader consequences. I will invite now my co-hosts today to introduce themselves.
Hi, so I guess I'll start. Hello, everyone. My name is Javid. I was born and raised in Baku, Azerbaijan, and now I live in Amsterdam, where I work as a business analyst in asset management. I hold a master's degree in international finance and interested in macroeconomics and policy. It's a real pleasure to be here as a co-host for the first time, and I'm very excited to engage in today's discussion. So now over to you.
Hi everyone, my name is Narek Alexaнян. I'm from Gyumri, Armenia. I work as a journalist and I'm about to graduate from Georgian Institute of Public Affairs. I'm studying multimedia journalism and media management. And I'm really happy to be here as a co-host alongside Javid.
Right. So we are delighted to be joined today by two extra special guests, Hamida Giyasbayli and Narek Sukiasyan. I'll start from introducing Narek. So Narek holds a PhD in international relations and political science and is a researcher at Center for Culture and Civilization Studies at the Institute of Armenian Studies, Yerevan State University. His work focuses on Armenia's foreign and security policy, Armenia-Russia relations, and democratization in Armenia. Narek, thank you for being with us. And now I'll bring you to introduce our second guest.
So our next guest is Hamida Giyasbayli, who is a scholar practitioner in a conflict transformation with 15 years of experience as a mediator, facilitator, and peace activist, working at the intersection of peace building, human rights, and social justice. Thank you both for joining us. So I would like to first start with asking what exactly is this declaration that came out of Trump-Aliyev-Pashinian meeting in Washington, D.C. So maybe, Narek, you can start with this question, just briefly present it.
Sure. Thanks for having me. As presented in the teaser of this talk, it is a very big event. So you use the word historic. We can go even that far, considering how shiny and glamorous it was. And the documents that have been signed there and released later are indeed of very big importance. What I would like to maybe caution, and I think this will be a silver lining in the entire my entire contribution today, is that there are still a lot of things that we do not know that are still risking to fall apart, even though this is a progress definitely for the short and mid-term, though there are very many questions and we will be able to discuss them throughout. So what happened in DC last Friday, if I'm not mistaken. We had the two leaders of two countries joining Donald Trump in signing bilateral agreements with the United States on different topics. On the Armenian American end of things, we had a commitment from United States to invest in Armenia's Crossroads of Peace project and its capacity. We have another agreement on microchips and semiconductors. Again, American investments supposed to be there. And on the and of course the Trump route agreement between Armenia and United States as a joint venture kind of. On the Azerbaijan United States, we have energy agreements. We have the waiving of the 907 Freedom Support Act section, which allows United States to give Azerbaijan financial aid and military in military sphere. But the most important, the star of the show is, of course, the trilateral declaration signed by Armenia, United States, and Azerbaijan, which most of its points are declarations as far as declarations go in diplomatic terms, in terms of goodwill and intentions. But the most important one there is the point there of those 7 points mentioned in that declaration is point number 3 or article number 3, which establishes a route, Trump route for international peace and prosperity, short TRIP with double P, that gives Azerbaijan a land access from mainland Azerbaijan to its exclave Nakhichevan through south of Armenia, through Meghzi, which kind of meets the interests of both capitals, as they stated. Azerbaijan wanted the word unimpeded to be there. It's there. And Armenia wanted the words under Armenian sovereign control, under Armenian jurisdiction, and under jurisdiction, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. So both sides should be happy as far as this is concerned. Also, there is reciprocity mentioned in those clauses, meaning that it's not going to be a unilateral concession. It's not going to be gifted to Azerbaijan, and Armenia will also receive access from Yerevan to the south of Armenia through Nakhichevan or through Azerbaijan to Russia or other places, and so on and so forth. Basically, this is it. And more importantly, let's say, or the more framework component, overarching component of this declaration is that the sides commit to the text of the peace treaty that before this meeting, the foreign ministers of both countries signed in Washington, D.C. They initialed the peace treaty, which is conditional to many things. I think we will discuss this later, that might become the actual final peace treaty. What they committed to is not to change the text anymore.
Thank you so much. But I would like to ask also, what are your thoughts on this, about this declaration, and are there any grounds for optimism in what this might lead to?
I think there is.
Asking both of you, not only Narek, Hamida will also answer the question. Hamida, do you want to?
You can finish since you started already.
All right, thank you.
I can continue if you want to have a breath and think about it. No problem.
Go for it, please. Okay. I'll need a few more sips of my tea.
Okay, no problem. Well, thank you, first of all of you, for inviting me and allowing space for discussion for something that is so important, for our region. And you truly right, this is quite a historic event, especially in the Armenia-Azerbaijan relationships, especially thinking of the past 37 years of very, very bloody conflict. Even thinking about it throughout my career, this is definitely a moment that I always wanted to see in my life, but it also seems more like a dream at this point. And of course, it's positive. I want to answer a question, what it is, what has been signed. And I want to draw the attention to the wording, because I think the day that this was signed, this deal, this declaration, a lot of news went out into social media. People were super happy, calling it finally the peace agreement. Even people who were quite pro-war, at least from Azerbaijani side, that I could notice, I could see people were really happy. People were really excited. And this is definitely a demonstration of a long-awaited peace, a long-awaited process that would bring something, some kind of result. But it is also just a declaration, yes. It is a business deal, in my opinion. The way I evaluate it, it is a business deal. It's not the final peace accord. I think a lot of people understood it as the final treaty between two countries and got a little bit overexcited. But it's just also a great way to see how the narrative of potential signature for the peace agreement is being received within the population. So I really, really was researching that in the terms of the narrative and how people are perceiving this. But at the same time, yeah, this is not the final peace accord. The final initialized text was also released on the same or the next day, basically. We knew that this mediation process, negotiations were going on for a very long time with the facilitation of Brussels and also directly between the parties, directly between the diplomats of two countries. But the process was very private for also very long time. Nobody knew what exactly they're discussing there. Usually we would get also news from Armenian media, from Armenian diplomats and Armenian state representatives on what exactly is being discussed and what is the tension. But finally, it's out there. But it is interesting for me to also see the difference, how much this peace deal has been advertised in parallel to the initialized potential peace accord. We could see that there's much less attention going towards the actual text and actual points in the articles in the potential initialized peace accord, and more attention was given to this business deal, which also gives me a hint of what this peace can potentially look like and what are the interests on this both sides, not only Armenia, Azerbaijan, but also America, United States. So it kind of sets the tone, I think, that the first what was signed was it is positive, don't get me wrong. I don't want to give negative picture, but it does give us a hint of what is the priority and what are the interests in each side. It is very much business diplomacy, and it is definitely coming from Azerbaijani interests in the region and very much pushed. And at the same time, Azerbaijan is also making sure that if this deal, because all deals can be just a paper. At the end of the day, they are just a paper, whether they're signed and in words, whether it is said that there is commitment or not, they are just a piece of paper. But we also know that there is an alternative road being built on the territory of Iran, this Aras project that is already launched. So we can see that there is seriousness in having this corridor, in this north-south corridor that would unite East and West. And that plan has been going on for a very long time, actually. There have been a lot of discussion in connecting geographies and generally enhancing economic opportunities that go through the region. So it is positive, definitely. In the history of this conflict, beyond the ceasefire that was signed in '94, that didn't really bring anything further than still bloodshed. It was a ceasefire that failed. We didn't have anything that was clearly signed with more or less consent by both parties and agreed upon. So this is, I agree that this is a very historical and a positive step. But as I agree with Narek, it is still not clear whether if the commitment won't fall through, of course, if the road is going to be built, how is it going to be built? Who is going to be building it? What are the security guarantees for people who are living on the ground, for all the people? You know, I worked in the areas, bordering areas between Armenia and Azerbaijan for a very long time with local population, people who were directly affected by the breaks of ceasefire. And no matter what the capitals say, it is very much important to understand how this process is going to happen and how people are going to feel about it and what kind of access they will be getting to this road. Are they going to be benefiting from this road? Are we going to be having open borders or not? So it is an exciting moment, yet we really don't have enough information. We have an information about this road being under control of US for 99 years or something like that. But what is practically going to happen, really? Nobody really knows yet. So yeah, I think I will stop here. And I want Narek to have his time as well. We can have a discussion also later.
I think there is room for optimism, especially in the short midterm, not necessarily about the road or the bilateral diplomatic relations regime and so on, but for not having escalations during that time. I think this is some sort of security bag that gives a bit room to breathe, especially for Armenia that needed this so much, especially going ahead to next year's elections with domestic turmoils and so on and so forth. But there are very many issues with this optimism. I think I've been characterizing it that it's as suspicious of an optimism as possible. First of all, because of complete lack of trust between the parties. Still, in the back of their minds, I'm sure both leaders fear their worst fears of the other side. And this prisoner's dilemma, I don't think have been escaped yet. So that's there. But I think for me, the biggest red flag in all of this is that the peace treaty is just initialed, pre-signed, not signed. I think the biggest negotiating card that Armenia has had is this route to Nakhichevan. And there's nothing more powerful, really, that Armenia can leverage to incentivize Azerbaijan to finally sign it, which it still conditions to changing Armenia's constitution. I think our audience here knows the issue well, so I won't go into very technical matters of it. And I'm very fearful of that because the referendum in itself is presented however you want. Changing Armenia's system of governance from parliamentary to semi-presidential, more democratic constitution, more peaceful constitution, branded as however you want. It is still going to be seen as changing your constitution based on Aliyev's demand. And I don't think it's going to be very popular. And I'm afraid that policy or decision makers or maker in Baku knows that this is not going to be a very popular referendum. And if this fails, I'm afraid this might be used as casus belli, and we might hear from Baku, see, Armenians still are revanchistic, so we have to reteach them the lesson. A quote, which is almost literal from things that we've heard in the years before. So that's the biggest red flag for me. There are many other problems with this. The biggest normative problem for me is that however big of a celebration this is a celebration of solving issues by force. This is not celebration of a diplomatic victory. This is not a celebration of two adults sitting in a room and going to a win-win mutual concessions. This is basically just legalizing the victor's peace and whatever has been achieved through force against, among other things, civilians and against human rights. So this is. I read a quote. I didn't go too much into detail. Maybe if I give it a second thought, I will not be so into this comparison. But I think what it really struck me that what is celebrated when it comes to the agreement reached in Washington is exactly what the West or Europeans avoid when it comes to Ukraine, Russia. In the sense of this normative debate of what do you award, and I think there are very significant flows with this metaphor or parallel, but I think the core idea of the normative debate is there, and obviously again this comes at a complete absence of the people who suffered most from the conflict having any agency in it. That's definitely problematic. And I understand that negotiations might have failed if you insisted too much on the, refugees, on human rights, on stuff like this. And that's probably not the most attractive agenda negotiated through Trump or Witkoff. But at least the sides could have been a bit more inclusive, a bit more understanding and empathetic in their communications to their people. We haven't really seen that. I'm more concerned as I follow the Armenian society and the issues here, and I haven't seen that much here. And we're not really seeing work done with grievances at the background of the celebrations. I have a few more points, but I'm sure we'll get to them throughout the talk. I don't want to turn this into a monologue.
I think we kind of naturally can move to our next question. So, Narek, at the start of conversation, you mentioned a few deals that were signed, and also a lot of positivity around the whole declaration. But let me turn that around a bit. And you said that everyone, both sides, should be happy as a result of the declaration. But let me turn that around a bit. Is there someone who seems dissatisfied with this declaration, or are there any losers, let's say, as a result of this declaration?
I think the primary losers of the declaration are where I ended my last answer, are those who have suffered the most on their skin, who had their skin in the game, let's put it that way. Because their interest isn't, or their concerns, their traumas haven't been represented there. And I'm not insisting that this treaty is the only way to address that. There are other ways it can be done, not to sabotage diplomacy and so on, but I'm not seeing that much. What is not, whose interests maybe are not as represented, I think we have to go to the more international level of things. The commentators, especially Western, were quick to announce that Russia is the loser and Iran is the loser. And we're expecting really harsh and really bad statements coming out of there, and we're kind of surprised not to see that. And the opposition in Armenia too was quick to condemn this agreement, saying how negatively it's going to be perceived by Iran and Russia. And the government, more pro-government voices were saying that, see, now we have our opposition is actually the hardliner in Tehran or something like that. We didn't see that because I think we're seeing with this deal really some change of paradigm, both in the region, but not only due to this, but also what's happening in Ukraine and how it's being handled on transatlantic level, that the old fault lines of conflicts and camps are being a bit redrawn, or at least their logic is being changed, especially when it comes to Iran and Iran's weakened position after the 12-day war. Even though we've seen some more critical comments coming from there, the comments from there were very positive, to be honest. And I think one could have not expected more positive statement from Tehran about U.S. presence on its border. I think that's the biggest they could have afforded, right, diplomatically and for their domestic audiences. On top of that, we saw Zarif's article in Foreign Policy coming just a couple of days ago, where he was talking about this opening as an opportunity, as a possibility for Iran, because also there with all the fault lines, there is an interest and need probably also in Tehran to engage more and more with West and especially with the United States. For Russia, the situation is a bit different. Russia can both gain and lose from this. It can gain from this if it decides to be part of it, and it can lose from it if it decides to sabotage. But if it sabotages it successfully, then it's not losing. Let me explain. Russia wanted the land access to Turkey for a very long time, and it was very also interested in putting this in the trilateral statement of ceasefire in 2020. Now, if this comes to fruition, it's going to get this land access to Turkey via Azerbaijan. Well, let's put aside the Azerbaijani-Russian problems that I think are more tactical than strategic in the long term, but it can finally get this access. Moreover, if the railroad is also functional, and if the railroad passing through Mehri, then entering to Nakhichevan, comes back and enters Armenia, goes to Yerevan and further, well, that railway belongs to, or is a consortium of Russian railroad company's daughter company, South Caucasus Railroad System, right? So it's going to have a very important role in this whole infrastructure, regional infrastructure. So it can become part of it, or maybe even invest further, and especially in the north of Armenia, and provide another connection again through Azerbaijan to Russia, and turn Armenia. We've been joking with some colleagues, turn Armenia into a Djibouti, where you have the bases and interests of everyone in the world here, and that is in some way a hedging strategy of all the great powers, making sure everyone is interested, that everyone is safe, and not pulling the strings too much. Again, when it comes to losers, it's especially, to sum up, it's especially those whose voices domestically affected by the conflict are not being heard and needs are not being met. When it comes to the international spectacle, the things are a bit more complicated there, and they are all involved have both to lose and to gain, depending how they decide to play their cards.
It's quite interesting perspective. Hamida, would you like to share your thoughts?
I mean, Narek gave such a detailed answer. I don't really know what to add at this point. Brilliant analysis. I will agree that mainly right now, because this is, again, not really the peace accord. It is a business deal, which we don't know if it's going to happen. I mean, considering that Mr. Trump doesn't even know the names of our countries, he really made an effort to remember the names on the day of the signature, but later he just decided to forget. And yeah, it's.
I think our presenters also should have presented us that way, using the same words.
Yeah, Hamida from Azerbaijan and Narek from Albania.
I know. So yeah, I don't know. It might be that so many things can happen. You know, this region is, especially with Azerbaijan being the hegemonic power in this region now, and considering that me as Azerbaijani, I also like when somebody asks me a question, I don't really know what's going to happen. Like anything can happen, you know? With the logic of Aliyev's regime, anything can happen. And a lot of actions are definitely strategic and tactical, but with this agreement, with this deal, we don't even know if it's gonna happen at this point. If this is just something that was signed to make Trump look better as a peace president, having more leverage in front of like international community and yeah, having a little bit more respect in front of Russia to continue doing the negotiations between Russia and Ukraine to get some kind of peace award, Nobel Peace Award that he's really, really trying. He called the Norwegian prime minister on a walk off the office hours and asked him to give him a Nobel Peace Prize. So we don't really know. Maybe even America will lose and will not get an access if it doesn't follow this deal. But I agree with Narek that in a sense, the whole geopolitical environment is changing now. And the thing is that even with the final peace accord, we might we're all very excited right now and trying to think positively. Unfortunately, there is this toxic positivity sometimes in peace building and peacemaking, which is important to be hopeful. But hope is also something that is needs to be in active making, and with by active making I mean is following through and actually doing an action and committing to something. So the losers will be those that won't commit and won't invest into building the relationships and even businessmen. I mean, in this case, this is a very ambitious, very big project, and Azerbaijan has a backup plan to it. Even if this road doesn't happen, Azerbaijan has a backup plan. So just to underline the point, it is going to be the population mainly that have seen the conflict, have been affected by the conflict, who are living without any guarantees, without any understanding of what do these peace deals mean. There will be mostly the losers because they will have to accept top-down decisions and that they were not informed, didn't have a say in, and might not even benefit. But yeah, I don't want to be the party pooper. Here, I want to be a peace builder as well. So a lot of sides will win if this will be something that key players will commit to. Europe can benefit out of this road a lot. Russia can benefit out of this road a lot. Iran can even benefit from it. I mean, it won't have to invest so much money into building. It depends how big of a road you want, how wide of a road you want. International roads for cargo, they need to be big. They really need to be invested into. So a lot of sites can benefit. It's good that there's discussion over that, but is it going to happen or not? We will see about that.
Thank you so much for the answers. you both talk a bit about foreign powers and how they are going to be benefits from this deal, but I would like us to concentrate a bit more on US and the EU and how, if this declaration proposal or carry through, how the US and the EU influence in the region will rise, or like how it would impact. Again, I'm asking both of you, so feel free to answer.
Which one?
Both of you are being as, I don't know, Narek can start and you can continue as we're already doing like that.
Right. Well, elephant in the room, United States, obviously, if it's doing this, the interests in it are pretty at face value and straightforward. It's doing part of its global or more strategic goal of containing Russia, and obviously replacing Russia in this passage that it envisaged so much is going to be critical, again, as Hamida repeatedly and rightly so mentions, if the deal carries through and it actually is built. It's going to have this presence, which is going to boost the east-west connectivity of hydrocarbons, and not only, which is also another strategic interest of the United States. So, and the business, whatever comes, chips in along the transactions. European Union, this is a bit more tricky when it comes to EU. EU, I wanted to add this to the losers, but I thought that we might discuss EU in particular. So EU has been the most absent, if we can say so, actor in the whole debate about this. And I mean, one of the reasons, but this is not the key one, is that you have so many players and you cannot come up with one policy to it, which was discussed, but couldn't achieve a consensus. So it's also the institutional problems of the European Union. But European Union was absent from the deal, even though both in written form and politically, even though it's probably the biggest investor and donor to Armenia South region, Sunik, and its reconstruction, its development, and investments in its infrastructure and so on. This is a very illustrative of European Union's engagement. It is usually the one who does most of the job, whose hands get dirty. But when it comes to from technical aspects to political aspects, it leaves the chat, or it's being ghosted. Let's put it that way, if we're into the Gen Z vocabulary today. Another reason for this. So one is EU is not a geopolitical actor, so that's one of the reasons it's not present that much, though it at the end of the day can be one of the winners. The second one, institutionally, positions of 27 member states are not easy to synchronize. And third, I think this is more about the process, how it's done. If you talk to EU diplomats, they would complain that they're not really informed, or they didn't really know what was exactly happening. Well, because it wasn't being done by State Department, who would be their natural counterpart and who would be in touch with them and on the same, bring them to the same page. This initiative was almost single-handedly done by Witkov in his shuttle diplomacy, and not too many things were done through State Department. Therefore, hence the informative or communicative absence of European Union from the process. And this brings me to another concern, that it is more than not an ad hoc deal, not really representing the institutional legacy of negotiating process, even though bits and pieces appear, but it's not built up on that. It's more of a like, hey, I have a great idea, let's do this kind of agreement. Though again, very well connected to a lot of things that have been contended before. And also more ad hocness of this is added by the nature how Trump deals with diplomacy. Reminder, and again, one of the things that is celebrated in Armenia is that people see this as a US commitment to Armenia, which absolutely this is not. It's a commercial commitment. Even we know that American commercial interests tend to be backed up by political will from Washington, D.C., but this is not a this is not a security commitment. This does not mean if something happens on the road, the US will intervene. Absolutely not. And moreover, since even if not only there is no such commitment, but also just the way this administration does diplomacy adds more to the spontaneity, which is not probably a character that you want to have in a rivalry that's been going on so systematically and so in such a complicated way for generations.
Thank you,
My
Narek.
answer without
Hamida?
a conclusion. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with a lot that Narek has said, and in my opinion, if this deal is gonna carry through at all, I don't really see, at least coming from understanding Azerbaijan's politics and its vector, the way they advertise it, multi-vector politics. I don't really see increase of influence of or presence of EU or United States in the region, whether the deal is going to be signed or not. And I will explain why considering the developments in Azerbaijan, how it's using, like many other authoritarian countries in the world, autocratic countries have started using the coloniality as politics, something that came from very much leftist grassroots movements and then transitioned into being basically a narrative for autocrats. We see a lot of this narrative, a lot of these tactics in African countries, where the coloniality is used to see democracy and human rights as something that is brought from outside and being imposed, and all the Western countries being evil and basically have to be demonized. I'm not saying they're not, but also I don't really see how there is going to be more influence or more presence of either US or EU. EU is also changing a lot. It changed a lot. It doesn't really follow through all of the agreements and convention it has with Azerbaijan in terms of human rights in the first place, considering that there are a lot of human rights violations in Azerbaijan. When you talk about political prisoners as European diplomats, they don't want to talk about it. For them, peace agreement is the priority. So basically, in this past 2 years, the crackdown on the civil society in Azerbaijan was absolutely off the table of European diplomats. So they don't really have leverage in that sense. EU doesn't really have a say anymore. Not that it had for the past 13, 14 years, it didn't in Azerbaijan since the first crackdown that was also basically not accounted for by EU. So that gave a very much big message to Azerbaijan. It can do whatever it wants and it won't be held accountable. So EU is not a power that has any kind of leverage, and there is no sense for Azerbaijan to let EU. And again, I'm speaking from a position of seeing Azerbaijan as the most strongest at this point power in the region that dictates where the region is going. It's the richest, it's the biggest military, it's the biggest political network and diplomacy efforts. So I don't see EU anywhere close to the region. Maybe there is some presence in Armenia for security guarantees, potentially, hopefully, some kind of negotiation there. Neither I see any progress in Georgia, considering all of their laws, anti-NGO laws and foreign agents laws that Azerbaijan is very much familiar with. And really, Aliyev been saying that they're trying to teach Georgia how to do politics. So it's kind of two regimes that are learning from each other and exchanging information. So I don't really see how EU will expand its presence. US, Trump is not a politician. He is a businessman. It's important in a sense that you need to be a good diplomat that is using force, not facilitative mediation, more of a forceful mediation. But I don't really see how Azerbaijan will allow any Western country to have any kind of serious power or leverage inside the region. That is definitely not a priority. And that is definitely not an interest of the surrounding countries, Turkey, Iran, and Russia. They all are autocratic leaders. They all have the same interests. They've all been in power for a very long time. And they all have the same understanding of, let's settle everything down as much as we can and make money together and stay in power as long as we can. So I don't really see anyone outside of the region expanding its.
If you would allow it, just to follow up on.
I want to be challenged.
No, not at all. I think I'm continuing on your point, especially on the Westerners' record when it comes to human rights, and connect this to the previous question, which I wanted to say but forgot. So the losers question. I think one of those is Baru Samadov, whose detention, whose arrest still remains in force, and it goes completely as I think yesterday Gulnara Madeva argued in OC Media that if there is a peace deal, what he's being charged for is actually, it was absurd. It's becoming more absurdic. So I just wanted to have this on the record somewhere.
All right. Well, I think we can move on with the next question, which is actually related. So we discussed several parties that are either winners or losers or both in some cases. So, there is one party we haven't discussed, is Turkey. And let's assume for a second that the momentum of this declaration is preserved. Then how do you see this initiative influencing relations among Armenia, Turkey, and Azerbaijan? And I think, Narek, you can start.
Sure. Indeed, the momentum, we've not had a better momentum for normalization of Armenia-Turkey relations, I think. And the calls for this are present very much. We saw in the Armenian Prime Minister's call to Erdogan after the talks, and calling on to finally realizing the commitments that have been made already 3, if I'm not mistaken, years ago, about opening the border for third country citizens and those with diplomatic passports. And on Armenia's side, the road is ready, the checkpoint is ready, and so on. It can be done any day, and I think it should be done as soon as possible, and would be a real test of commitments in this. Definitely, Turkey has been kept in the loop in this whole process. It's very much informed and welcoming and supportive of the process, and I think it has the interest to do so. And one of the most important tests of goodwill and of good faith on the Azerbaijani side is its policy to intervene or not in the Armenia-Turkey normalization. It has traditionally been the biggest spoiler in the normalization, sabotaging the talks last minute, and now having even more leverage over Turkey and being more more able to do so, as Hamida rightly mentions, being the power holder, the powerhouse of Caucasus, and the actor that defines how politics are done on strategic level. If Azerbaijan again intervenes to undermine Armenian-Turkey normalization, that will be a very clear sign of commitment or not to the peace deal that is kind of the foundation of what we're discussing today.
I agree with Narek on this. I mean, we can use power of our imagination and really try to hope and imagine that potentially all borders in the Caucasus open. And that would be really beautiful to see. But I wanted to be also realistic. It is very much dependent on Azerbaijan and its own commitment and whether it does want to sign the peace agreement and actually invest into peace. So what could happen, it could open all of the land borders in the region, including Azerbaijan's land borders. Let's remember that Azerbaijan's land borders have been closed for more than 5 years since the COVID pandemic. Under the argument of COVID, but then there were speculations that it's not, it's anti-terrorism precautions, let's say, or something. So if all the deals will be signed and followed with, it could potentially free up the movement of people in the region, which is absolutely important. Armenia has been landlocked basically for the entire conflict, the entire 30 years. Azerbaijan's population have been basically in prison within its land borders for the last 5 years. Turkey is huge. It doesn't really care. But if this really will work out, it will still bring benefit to people. Like, even if it will benefit more businessmen, I think it will still benefit people if it will happen.
Thank you so much. We kind of talked about Russia, but we haven't talked about Ukraine-Russian war. And there are a lot of talks right now about the peace agreement between Ukraine and Russia. There was this recent events happened in Alaska, and President Zelensky went to USA. So there might be an outcome of this war. How do you see this outcome may affect on Armenia-Azerbaijan peace processes? Narek and Hamida, please.
There are expectations in Armenia that if whatever is the outcome there, in the sense that as long as it just ceases, whether it's a ceasefire or a final or whatever, that Russia frees up resources, economic, diplomatic, political, military, and so on, it will reactivate in the region. It will try to come back and refill the vacuum that it has left, that's now being filled in with others. And this might come with certain risks, depending on what are the goals that Moscow will follow. There are, I think, lessons learned in Kremlin that, especially when it comes to Armenia, that a number of things that are thought can be taken for granted in Armenia are not, in terms of Russian positions and popularity, and especially when we're speaking about public acceptance and trust towards Russia in the light of how Karabakh was ethnically cleansed at the watch of Russian peacekeepers, how Russia, according to people, did not meet its security guarantor obligations when it comes to our sovereign Armenia per se, and so on. I think now they will try and are trying not to do the same thing and expect different results in their policy to Armenian, especially in Armenian domestic politics. I think more of this will crystallize just, 10 months? In 10 months' time, when Armenia will undergo national elections. But the bottom line is, if something ends there, probably Russia will reactivate here. And some also see the Azerbaijani-Russian tensions now as attempts by Azerbaijan to prevent this, to not allow grounds to exist for a triumphant Russian return to Caucasus in a preventive measure approach, let's say.
I think that the outcome to Russian-Ukraine war, or Russia's war on Ukraine, is not really around the corner. I think we will be waiting for quite a long time, as well as in our conflict with the final peace agreement and actual actions towards peace. I think we will be waiting. It's not going to happen very soon. And honestly, whatever is going to happen, I don't really see how it will benefit Ukraine, unfortunately. I am seeing less and less support towards Ukraine in general in this past several years. And considering the US politics and how much it's been supporting Russia and trying to bring Russia back into the international politics, we clearly see the support, political intentional support. And although European leaders are trying to stand together with Ukraine, Europe is not such a big power anymore in the world political ecology. So,
or still isn't. Maybe not anymore, still isn't.
Let's see. Yeah, I don't really see that happening. I am based in Berlin, and I can see how fascist parties are coming back to the Bundestag. So I guess you're more positive than me. I am evaluating the autocratic rise in European politics, and Europe is not a homogeneous space. It has a lot of different spaces, and my general understanding is that it is becoming more authoritarian itself. And I unfortunately not so positive about Russia's influence in the region. I think it will stay, and I think it will be more powerful, or at least remain its power, if Ukraine will have to declare capitulation, and Russia will prevail in this war, it will definitely have even more power. I have been living in Georgia for the past 4 years. I can definitely see how Russia has gained incredible amount of power in Georgia, considering that the Georgian population was quite anti-colonial for a very long time, but their government, Georgian Dream, has managed to turn the tables and bring in Russia as a peace wanting country. So I definitely see that there is still a lot of influence that Russia has. And don't get me wrong, but from my point of view, when I see what is happening between Russia and Azerbaijan, I only see it as a theater. I don't see it as some kind of real conflict. I don't really see it as some kind of decolonial process happening. I see it as, well, we had to respond something. Russia hit Azerbaijani civilian airplane. well, Azerbaijan had to respond something to remain an image of a hegemonic, strong power. I don't really think that Russia will lose its influence. And yeah, I'm a bit more pessimistic in this sense for the region. And I'm a bit more pessimistic for Ukraine as well. And that will obviously directly influence our region.
Thank you.
Yes, taking a step back, we have already touched upon topic of Karabahi Armenians, and yeah, this was a notable silence at the Washington summit about the future of Karabahi Armenians. None of the leaders gave a clear answer of what is going to happen to them. So, what do you think can realistically be expected for them is in this new scenario? So, Narek, if you would like to share your thoughts.
One of my criticism to the deal was that I think this was one of the best opportunities Armenia could get to fundraise for the needs of the displaced. I think this was something that could have been tied to international efforts as a reward for reaching it, since Armenia seems to be mostly conceding, agreeing to demands and framing them in an acceptable wording and manner to them. I think this was something that Armenia could have been putting on the table, especially since the international efforts directed to the needs of the refugees are extremely low, and their social standing in Armenia is deteriorating as number of social projects are being shut down because they passed the deadlines and so on, or what was planned. I think this could have been done, and this could have been at least at the symbolic level, right? I'm sure. I'm not in a position, of course, not to judge or to speak for people who suffered that trauma, but I think this is better than what we have, because I've been hearing from a lot of refugees that, well, what about me? Okay, this happened, but what about me? And this could have been about them, and I don't think Armenia will have a better chance to fundraise. And if we compare to very similar displacement scenarios worldwide elsewhere, what's been raised for these refugees doesn't compare to the actual needs that been met in other places post-conflict. And I think I need to also talk about the POWs and prisoners, other prisoners that are still being illegally detained. Again, this seems like the most, as we started with that, right? The historic moment. If they're not being released at the historic moment, where is the place that you show goodwill, even symbolically at the, I don't know, 1-2 people being realistic, even if that is not being done, and I don't know what's being done on the backgrounds, on the margins, on the backstage. And I understand that the talks about POWs is one of the most sensitive, and even if they are carried out, they're being kept secret. But we don't see progress much there, and that's why I retain the right to continue speaking about this. I think that's my answer to your question.
I mean, main reason why they are avoiding the question of Armenian displaced is that they're not a priority for them, and it's not being discussed in the negotiations. We've seen the initialized potential peace accords, and there is very little that you can actually connect displaced. There is nothing, basically. There is some kind of potential for transitional justice, but there are no systems, no professionals, no institutions that can actually provide this kind of process. And there is, if there was an opportunity in pre-2020 war, and Azerbaijan was talking about potential, some kind of potential status, some kind of potential inclusion, I don't really think that this is a discussion anymore. It's not, and I don't, again, I don't want to be pessimistic, but I am still obliged to be realistic and say, I don't think this is going to be on the agenda at all for a very long time.
I mean, Pashinian, I'm sorry.
Unless there is a process that actually wants to initiate justice in this region, the peace that comes through justice, I don't really see how, even if Armenia will try to bring this on the table, bring this discussion, bring this discourse, I don't really see how Azerbaijan will be interested in that.
And Armenia isn't bringing it up. I mean, Pashinyan just a couple of days ago in an address to the nation said that he considers the conversations about the right of return unrealistic, and they're not going to put it on the table. And I mean, without security guarantees, nobody is going to return, however much they dream about that, and that is very understandable.
Sometimes Azerbaijan gives some kind of statement saying that they would be willing to give their passports, Azerbaijani passports, let's say.
Which is not precisely the security guarantee a refugee wants. Yeah.
So
put it
they're
very
not saying
mildly.
anything else, basically. Yeah, they're inviting in speeches, but they're not really saying anything else.
All right. Well, thank you, boss. That was very insightful. Yeah, Diego, would you like to take it from here?
Yes. Thank you, everybody, for this first part. We have now a couple of minutes where if we have some questions from somebody in the audience or even one of our co-hosts that wants to ask a different question, we can ask it now. I know that Ralph, I don't know if you're there. You wanted to ask a question.
Thank you guys. Great analysis. Appreciate both of you being here today. I think Narek and Hamida probably alluded to it, but I wanted to hear your opinion of how population of both countries has perceived this treaty, how they assessed it. So that's my question.
The treaty or the deal?
Well, it's technically a memorandum.
Framework.
it's a declaration, framework for the deal. Yeah, whatever has been announced.
The Trump deal. Yeah. Narek, you want to go? Because I think I touched a bit on it, maybe.
Sure. It's a pleasure to talk to you, Ralph, after knowing each other in years from Twitter. Population, how they see it. I mean, I don't want to speculate because I think such questions need to be answered only sociologically, which I do not retain in my possession at the moment. But I think in Armenia, the problem of any public perception comes along with polarization in politics. And you tell me one policy line that you follow, and I'll probably build up your most other preferences in other policies along the lines of pro-government or anti-government, or pro-government and pro-opposition. In that sense, the pro-government are polarizing even further, celebrating and showing how amazing this victory is. and how we have gained eternal peace, and the opposition is framing everything on the other end of the spectrum, polarizing even further, that this is just another step, if not a more fatal step, in conceding Armenian interest, and so on and so forth. I think what is more testable without sociology is the reactions from more balanced voices, from more independent voices. And I see among those a bit more optimism, a bit more cautious celebration or congratulations that this is a positive step in the right direction, with all the problems that come with it and all the work that is still there to complete in order to have something good at the end of the day. But within those more undecided or more independent voices, I see a bit more 55% optimism, 45% pessimism, let's put it that way. But I think we might have another sociological survey, one that I trust and I recommend our listeners to follow, by International Republican Institute, done almost twice a year, to see, and they regularly ask this question. I mean, the last data didn't show much optimism, but I think we might be able to see some differences here after what we saw last weekend.
Independent public polls are not really possible in Azerbaijan, so it's really hard to say. That's why I've been mostly monitoring through my own networks. And what I can say, obviously, people who are part of independent civil society, let's say whoever is left, not really happy because, well, there can't be peace without justice. Azerbaijan is not really looking for offering justice to anyone, truly. So, but in general population, if I look into my friends' circles, that's just, artists, I don't know, regular people, not just like it's someone part of the civil society. You see, people are happy. People are waiting for something important to happen. So that's,
I think people want to be. I think people. It comes with some people are tired.
yeah.
Even if they don't believe that this brings peace, they like to believe that they want to give it a chance. And
because we need a celebration. We've seen a lot of hurt and a lot of pain, and people really want to just have one day they can be just happy. Just one day. And that's what I get out of it.
yeah.
Thank you so much. We have 3 more questions. Let's see if we manage to fit them. So Nar,
Shall we, Diego? I suggest
sorry.
collecting them so we don't skip any.
Yeah, I'm keeping track of them. Nar, you want to ask your question, please?
Yeah. Thank you. There were a lot of responses from the Armenian opposition parties, some of them calling it as a corridor, some of them calling it as another capitulation. I'm not sure how was the response from them. Like, I know that in Azerbaijan you don't have a major opposition parties, political parties right now, unfortunately. But let's say people who are in abroad, how they are saying this, and I know that like a lot. I've read about this like so-called Western Azerbaijan people that they want to come, and there was this statement from them as well. So I would like to ask Hamida your thoughts on this, how the so-called opposition is reacting to this peace treaty.
If I may add shortly, and if there is criticism to it, what is the criticism about?
Yeah, because in Armenia it's a bit simpler. Like they are calling it corridor. There is this capitulation and like a lot of stuff. But for me, it was like a bit not understandable. What are the reactions from opposition from Azerbaijan?
Thank you for your questions. I also don't understand what is the reaction of Azerbaijan's opposition. I mean, at this point, this, as you rightfully analyzed, it's not really an opposition, so they will follow with whatever is gonna happen. So there has been a very funny moment, though. There are several people who are supposed to be an opposition, but not really. They're fighting over who is going to be the first ambassador to Azerbaijan in Armenia. So there are some discussions around, there is some discourse, but nobody will really make a deep, so much analytical analysis of it or criticize it. It is what it is. Aliyev is the elected president, and it's not really an opposition that can challenge him or give any alternative opinion or critical opinion. So in that sense, this is all I have to say. But on the points of the Western Azerbaijan, there have been a development recently. The state has ordered for this party that was supposed to represent Western Azerbaijan. It ordered it to dissolve, basically. It's formally dissolved right after the deal was signed, literally the next day. The party was, we had this party, it's crazy. I don't think anyone really believed that it was real. It was just part of the propaganda, but it's basically formally officially dissolved. And
Hamida, I'm sorry, do you mean a party or the organization of? Because I remember that Azeri Times wrote that the organization is dissolving, and the next day the community leader came out to say, no, that's fake news. Do you refer to that, or this is a different?
Yes. So, some people with political ambitions, even without proper registration, can call themselves a party sometimes. It happens. A party in exile, party just because we want to be a party.
Okay.
Just imagine, okay? Just imagine, don't question it. There are a lot of organizations also abroad, like in Turkey or Russia, that were also claiming that they're like this Western Azerbaijan representatives, but nobody really heard about them until this moment of a narrative in the media about Western Azerbaijan. So it's not really a thing, to be honest. It was part of the propaganda, and it still is, but there are steps, basically, very quick steps to counter that narrative. On the other hand, I wanted to add on Zangezur corridor, because Narek was saying that the Pashinyan's name for this corridor was accepted. Yes, it was accepted formally. I forgot how exactly it is called. Peace route or some peace corridor?
Trip. It's called Trip with double P.
No, Pashinyan has had its own. You are muted, Narek.
The
Crossroads of Peace.
Crossroads of Peace, exactly. So there's a different name in Armenian media, but in Azerbaijani media, it's still Zangezur corridor. They didn't change it. That is how it is being presented. And we can say that some toponyms have different names in different languages, but in this case, I think it is still part of the narrative and discourse, and it's going to stay for some time like that.
Language is political.
It is political. And
thank you. We have very few minutes left. So Aram, if you can be very concise with your question, let's see if we can fit it all. Otherwise, we will have to cut in 10 minutes.
Yeah. I'll try to be as brief as possible. And hello, everybody. Very happy to see all of you. I kind of want to talk about peace building just a little bit because I think it needs to be kind of framed in the context of this deal. So the efforts of peace building didn't really prevent the war before 2020. I don't know how they were designed. but they didn't prevent the war. And then whatever efforts were made, and there weren't that many after 2020, they also didn't prevent the ethnic cleansing of 2023. Now we have a situation where peace building is basically curated by two people in the region, which is Ilham Aliyev and Nikol Pashinian. And I think Bahru Samadov's arrest is like a very good testament to that. So that like there is a monopoly on who can talk about peace, there's a monopoly on who can do peace building, etc., etc. So I just want to ask, what should peace builders / peace building organizations do at this point, being in one myself? And I just want to ask, what's the point basically of peace building, and what are the options of peace building and generally any reconciliation efforts between the two nations? Thank you.
As a professional, Hamida, I'll leave this to you, and also to save time. And also, I don't want to answer this question because I don't have an answer.
I mean, we've talked a lot about it with you, Aram, for many years, and I am also someone who had to re-reflect multiple times about many, many years of my career. And I think what is important to differentiate is the difference between peacemaking and peace building, for sure. And what is happening between the states is the mediation, the deals, and everything is peacemaking that I don't think I am even interested to participate in, all of these formal processes. And you are right that peace building is, I don't agree that it's being curated. I think it's being censored. It's very different, at least on Azerbaijani side, there isn't really much independent peace building possible on the ground. It's being absolutely censored while you have a peace builder in the prison for treason for 20 years. So that's very different. But when it comes to what we can do, we need to maybe rethink our ambitions, because when you talk about peace building didn't prevent the war before 2020, and you don't know how it was designed, I have an answer. It was not designed to prevent the war. It wasn't. And that's why there were ambitions and expectations that could not basically bring real peace. It was not designed to build something that will prevent war. But what we can do, we can learn from the past experience, for sure. And I think we can set our expectations a bit lower this time, and our ambitions also lower this time. And as I was saying, what I'm led by, no matter what is the deal, at the end of the day, whether the governments and states and businessmen will agree on something or not, we still need to live in this region somehow. We still have our lives, and as peace builders, peace and hope and generally any kind of democratic process is a process that has to be actively done every day in your life with little small steps. It's not something that just comes and stays forever. Peace needs to be fought for. Democracy needs to be fought for, even in democratic societies. Even in democratic societies. Non-violence is something that needs to be practiced regularly, on a daily basis, constantly, with intention, with action, with inspiration. And so what we can do, I think, is to keep building our communities. is to keep building our movements, because we didn't have a peace movement in the region. We didn't have one. And maybe this is the time to reflect and rethink everything that happened before and keep building a community with an understanding that it needs to be cherished, invested into, committed to, harvested, reflected upon with awareness, with willingness to be in the community and make it bigger, you know. That is the only thing I can do as a person. And that's what I recommend.
Thank you, Hamida and Aram. And Javid, is your question brief enough to fit in to have an answer in less than 2 or 3 minutes?
I think after such a beautiful speech, and that was a really nice, that would fit as a nice closing speech. Then I had a really long question, but I will shorten it a little bit. And yeah, unfortunately, coming back to this conversation was about Azerbaijan and escalation with Russia. And Hamida, you said it's something more tactical rather than strategic. And well, I saw that, for example, Putin visited a year ago Azerbaijan. There were Russian flags everywhere. I was there, and there was like this pro-Russian, let's say, atmosphere in the city. And there is a stark contrast with today. And I also accidentally happened to be in Odessa when Azerbaijani gas station was bombed. So it was a really very real action against Azerbaijan, bombing this brand new pipeline that was just testing. So I feel that there is slight coincidence that all this escalation happens in light of this deal that Azerbaijan is making so public. So I tend to be a bit more optimistic. But a question to you: do you think there is even a slight chance that Armenia and Azerbaijan are colluding, sort of against, not against, but colluding to kick Russia out of the region and finalize this peace agreement without it? So that's a question.
I like your optimism. I wish to have the same kind of optimism, but I will be realistic again. Kicking out Russia out of the region? No, I don't believe in that. Maybe partially somehow with all of the other post-Soviet states also have the same decolonial narrative. But not really. I don't really see how Russia is going to be kicked out of the region. Maybe a decrease of the influence in some spheres, but fully, no, I don't see that. And the peace agreement between states is going to be signed if Azerbaijan, first of all, wants peace or not. That is the first argument that I have. And whatever that peace is going to be something that Russia will also be okay with. That is just the reality. Not only Russia, though. Not only Russia. Also Turkey and also Iran. We should not forget that we are a very interesting region that is absolutely surrounded by very big powers. And we should not underestimate the power of all the powers. So I know we have a lot of pain around Russia, but it's not only Russia. It's not only Russia. And yeah, I think we need to re-strategize around how we approach Russia in the reality where we understand that Russia is going to be there. This is just geographical reality. It is our neighbor and it's going to be there, and it's the power that uses brute force. It's not diplomatic, it uses brute force. So we need to probably reshape our understanding how to engage with this power to keep our sovereignty in the long term.
So,
super short, I also agree with Hamida that it's not going anywhere. And I mean, I also talked about this shift, this new paradigm between Baku and Moscow being tactical rather than strategic. This is not my idea. I borrow it from, and I recommend whoever is interesting. Also, I'm just making a reference as an academic, not to talk about it. Tigran Grigoryan's analysis in his column on CivilNet, he very detailed writes about this. I think a couple of weeks ago he published it. So I refer you to that.
So thank you all. I want to end, I'm sorry we're ending abruptly, but thank you so much, Hamida and Narek, for joining. I think what's very interesting. Thank you to our co-host, Nar and Javid, and everybody who joined. So yeah, if you want to say goodbye, some last words, but thank you so much for today.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting. It was wonderful to share time with all of you.
Well, thank you all and see you next time.
Thanks. Bye-bye.